We all have this picture in our heads, right? The millionaire,
Yeah.
probably, like, aced every test, valedictorian maybe,
Hmm.
lives in some huge brand new estate.
Right, the stereotype.
But what if I told you that actually a lot of self-made millionaires weren't academic superstars, and some might even be living in a home that's seen a few decades?
Definitely surprising for many people.
Welcome to Book Talk, Finance. This is where we take fascinating books and, well, we try to pull out the crucial knowledge to help you understand finance and wealth just a little bit better.
And today, we're diving into The Millionaire Mind by Dr. Thomas J. Stanley. This book is really the culmination of years of in-depth research. He looked into the lives, the habits of, everyday people who built significant wealth in America.
Exactly. And it's not your typical finance book full of, like, complex jargon. It's more a look into the thinking, the psychology, really, behind how wealth is built.
Yeah, the mindset.
Yeah. We're going to explore some of the really surprising characteristics and behaviors Dr. Stanley uncovered. Things that honestly challenge what we often assume about the millionaire mind. And just so you know, this channel, it's all about exploring different angles of finance through, well, engaging discussions about insightful books like this one.
And Dr. Stanley, the author, he dedicated his career to studying the affluent in America, so he brings a ton of data and insight to the table.
Absolutely. So today we're setting out to unpack some key and, like I said, often unexpected insights into how these individuals think and act.
Okay, so where do we start? I think what's intriguing right off the bat is how Dr. Stanley's findings really tackle this myth, this idea that you need to be some kind of intellectual prodigy to get wealthy.
Yes, that's a big one. The book highlights that a significant number of millionaires in his study, they weren't necessarily the top students, not the ones with the highest test scores.
Right. We're talking about people who sometimes by their own admission might have been C students.
Or maybe didn't go to the most elite, prestigious schools, or their SAT scores were just average.
It's funny you mentioned the editor who first saw the book's potential. Apparently that aspect really grabbed their attention too.
I bet. Because it just flies in the face of conventional wisdom, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And it kind of reminds me of Robert J. Sternberg's work on successful intelligence.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
Well, he talks about how individuals who might not shine in traditional academic settings often develop other critical forms of intelligence. Things like practical intelligence, problem solving in the real world, and creative intelligence, that knack for new ideas.
Okay. So it's not just book smarts.
Exactly. It seems like many of these millionaires really honed these other intelligences, and often they just plain outworked or outmaneuvered people who might have relied only on their academic gifts.
That makes sense. And it's quite telling, isn't it, that only a small fraction of the millionaires Dr. Stanley surveyed found their, ideal job through aptitude tests or college career services.
Yeah, a really small percentage. It makes you question if those traditional metrics are truly the best predictors of future financial success.
So what is more important then, according to the book?
Well, what consistently comes through is the importance of sheer tenacity, persistence.
Just sticking with it.
Right. The book shares some great anecdotes, like the story of William Featherstone Gilmore Jr. He apparently had a less than stellar academic record, but he showed incredible courage and just this unwavering commitment to his goals.
So it wasn't about being inherently brilliant.
No, it was much more about the determination to keep pushing forward to overcome obstacles.
And it's not just a few isolated stories either, is it? There's data in the book.
Oh yeah. Table 3.2 in The Millionaire Mind is pretty compelling on this. When asked how their high school teachers saw them, future millionaires were far more often described as most dependable or most likely to succeed.
More than highest level of intelligence or highest grade point average.
Exactly. Way more often. That really speaks volumes, I think.
It really does. So it prompts us to think, okay, beyond just intellect, what are the other driving forces?
Well, the book emphasizes the role of courage, specifically the willingness to take calculated financial risks.
And that word calculated is so important, isn't it? This isn't about being reckless, throwing money at every get-rich-quick scheme you see.
No, absolutely not. In fact, Dr. Stanley's research often indicates the opposite. There tends to be an inverse relationship between having a high net worth and, say, engaging in frequent gambling.
Interesting. So they're risk-aware, not just risk-takers.
Precisely. They understand the difference between, just speculating wildly and taking well-considered risks. There's a story about a guy named Jane.
Oh, yeah.
He built a successful salvage business. And the key was he had the foresight and I guess the courage to seize opportunities during economic downturns, buying undervalued assets when everyone else was too scared.
Right, when there's blood in the streets, so to speak.
Kind of. There's this insight from a senior credit officer mentioned in the book, talking about this huge number of properties representing credit-dependent folks, people drowning in debt.
Okay.
But Gene looked at that same landscape and saw potential, where others only saw distress and problems.
Wow. That really highlights the mindset needed, doesn't it? Overcoming that fear of economic failure and spotting opportunities others miss.
Definitely. It's a bit of a mind game, as the book puts it. And if you look broader, you see a higher percentage of millionaires are self-employed business owners or professionals.
Right, which inherently involves more uncertainty than a steady paycheck.
Exactly. It underscores that willingness to step outside the perceived security of regular employment and embrace a greater degree of, again, calculated risk.
Okay, so we have tenacity, calculated risk-taking. What about their spending habits? This is another area where things get interesting.
Yeah, let's talk about frugality. It seems almost paradoxical, right?
Right.
You have these individuals with significant incomes, substantial net worth.
And yet, they're often remarkably cost-conscious in their daily lives.
What's really insightful here is this concept Dr. Stanley introduces, the economically productive household.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It means they actively engage in behaviors that minimize expenses. Things like repairing and maintaining their belongings, getting clothes mended, resoling shoes, seeking value, avoiding unnecessary consumption.
So not just throwing things out and buying new all the time.
Right. It's about maximizing the utility and lifespan of what they already own. It's a stark contrast to what he calls the income statement affluent.
The income statement affluent, those are the ones focused on looking rich.
Pretty much. Prioritizing conspicuous consumption, always needing the latest gadgets, the luxury items. That kind of spending often prevents them from actually building substantial long-term net worth.
They have a high income maybe, but it all goes out the door.
Exactly. And this frugal mindset, it even extends to big purchases like housing. Well, the book notes a preference among many millionaires for established, well-built homes, often in older neighborhoods.
Rather than the giant new mansions and developing subdivisions.
Often, yes. It seems to reflect an appreciation for intrinsic value, maybe better construction, and also a wariness about potential overvaluation in those brand new areas where there's no real price history yet.
So they're thinking like investors, even with their own home. Building the balance sheet, not just flashing the income statement.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's the core difference. Balance sheet affluent versus income statement affluent.
But it's not about being miserly about everything, right? They understand the value of their time, too.
Oh, absolutely. They're more inclined to invest their non-working hours in activities that actually further their knowledge or well-being, or maybe civic engagement.
Like consulting with tax pros, visiting museums, community stuff.
Right. Rather than spending hours on, say, DIY tasks that might save a few bucks but cost them valuable time, they could use more productively elsewhere.
That makes sense. It's strategic frugality, maybe.
I think that's a good way to put it, which kind of leads us naturally into the crucial aspect of vocation, or career choice.
Ah, yes, finding the right work. How important was that?
Hugely important. The book really underscores finding work that not only uses your skills and abilities, but also genuinely resonates with you, something you can become passionate about.
Is it always about passion from day one, though?
Interestingly, not always. Initially, Dr. Stanley found that just over half the millionaires chose their career path primarily for financial reasons: independence, profit potential.
Okay, so money was the first driver for many.
For many, yes. But here's the key. When they reflect later on what ultimately contributed to their economic success, that percentage jumps significantly. A large majority report that they eventually grew to love their work.
So the passion developed, or they found it along the way?
Exactly. There's a story of a Mr. Richard that illustrates this perfectly. He had this deep passion for his very specialized business in a specific geographic niche where there wasn't much competition.
Finding that niche.
And his genuine enthusiasm was clearly a powerful driver of his success. It wasn't just a job. It was his thing.
And finding that ideal career, it often involves a journey, right? Learning about yourself.
Definitely. Understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, maybe learning from past jobs that weren't fulfilling. The book mentions a Dan. His journey in the computer marketing industry showed that kind of evolution.
It takes time and experience.
It does. And there's this compelling idea mentioned from a guy named Don about combat blindness to economic opportunity.
Combat blindness. What's that?
He apparently drew it from the experiences of a famous fighter pilot, Eric Hartman. It's basically about training yourself to be constantly aware of and to recognize the opportunities that are all around us, often hidden in plain sight.
So developing a sort of radar for opportunity.
Kind of, yeah. A skill that the book notes certain communities, like the Korean American community mentioned, have often demonstrated really well through strong information sharing networks. They help each other spot profitable ventures.
Fascinating. Okay, so work is crucial. What about home life? Does the book touch on relationships?
It does, and it's another significant factor Dr. Stanley identified. The stability of marital relationships.
Really? There's a correlation with wealth.
His research indicates a notable correlation, yes, between having a stable marriage and achieving economic success.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the book suggests that millionaires often prioritize choosing spouses who have qualities conducive to long-term stability and sort of shared success.
Like what kinds of qualities?
Things like sincerity, being down to earth, intelligence, supportive, rather than solely focusing on, say, superficial attributes or whether the person already has wealth.
So it's about partnership, building together.
Exactly. It emphasizes the idea that a supportive and stable home environment provides a really solid foundation. It helps you navigate the inevitable ups and downs that come with building and maintaining wealth.
Yeah, I can see that. It contrasts sharply with someone like Lisa mentioned in the book, whose main goal was just to marry a doctor rather than build her own career.
Right. A very different mindset and approach to life and finances.
Okay, so stable home life, important. What about seeking help from outside? Advisors and such.
Yes. The final piece we should probably touch on is seeking expert advice, but doing it wisely.
Wisely is the key word again, I guess.
Definitely. It's about recognizing when you need professional guidance, especially for significant financial decisions, but also choosing those advisors carefully and not just blindly following them.
Is there an example of that going wrong?
Oh, yes. Dr. Hart's experience is a powerful cautionary tale in the book. He apparently lost a substantial amount of money by just blindly following the advice of a single asset manager.
Ouch. That hurts.
Big time. It underscores the need for due diligence, maybe getting second opinions. The advice he received later was crucial. Build an advisory committee, including maybe a lawyer and an accountant, not just one money manager.
Don't put all your trust eggs in one basket.
Pretty much. And Alvin's approach is shown as a more instructive way. He used brokers, sure, but mainly for executing trades and maybe providing research.
But not for the big strategy.
Right. He relied more on his attorney and his CPA for that comprehensive planning and input. It's about actively managing those advisory relationships, making sure they work for your goals, training them, in a sense.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So as we kind of wrap up this book talk finance on the Millionaire Mind, it really becomes clear, doesn't it? The journey to wealth, it isn't always paved with high IQs and fancy degrees.
Not at all. What's truly insightful, I think, is how Dr. Stanley's work highlights the often overlooked significance of these other qualities. Things like courage in taking those calculated risks.
The discipline of frugality we talked about.
Yeah, the power of pursuing work you genuinely enjoy, even if it takes time to find it.
The stability of a supportive partnership.
And the wisdom to seek expert counsel, but strategically, wisely.
And importantly, these aren't necessarily traits you're just born with. They seem like cultivated mindsets, deliberate habits that people develop.
That's a great point. They can be learned and practiced.
So we really encourage you, listening, to reflect on these insights from the Millionaire Mind. Think about how they might inform your own financial journey, your own approach to building wealth.
And maybe ask yourself, which of these principles of the Millionaire Mind resonates most strongly with you right now? And maybe what's one small step you could take, perhaps, to incorporate it more into your own life?
It's definitely food for thought. Ultimately, I think Dr. Stanley's work offers a really positive and empowering message. Financial success isn't some secret reserve for a select few. It seems achievable for many by adopting these perhaps unexpected but highly effective principles.
And just by understanding these nuances, these different facets, you can gain a more informed, more empowered perspective on your own path to financial well-being, whatever that looks like for you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for tuning in to this Book Talk Finance. We hope you found it useful.
Yeah, great discussion.
Definitely. And hey, subscribe to our channel for more discussions and talks exploring the fascinating world of finance.